What's up, and welcome back to Interpreting the Scares. That's right, we're moving right along on our October month of spooky films with the Human Centipede first sequence. Out of the 7 franchises that I'll be reviewing this month, I knew I had to at least include a couple of them that I've never seen before, and the 2 that I chose were Fright Night, which I know literally nothing about, and the Human Centipede, which I only understand the overall idea of what happens in the movie. Every now and then, I want to find a gruesome horror film that I can consider a guilty pleasure just based on how disgusting it is, all based on my morbid curiosity, and the Human Centipede, in all its disgusting wonder, sounded right up my alley, so it's time to find out if my curiosity for the macabre will remain sempiternal, or if this will shut it off entirely. Let's get cracking. This review is brought to you by the word of the day, sempiternal, eternal, and unchanging, aka everlasting. The Human Centipede tells the story of 2 unfortunate tourists traveling through Germany when they get lost, and looking for help, they run into a lone house in the middle of the woods. Inside lives a creepy older man who quickly sedates and kidnaps them both for an awful and demented purpose. His plan is to create a human centipede by connecting their gastric systems. If it works correctly, whatever the front of the centipede eats comes out the tail end. Welp! I guess I could check this movie off of my bucket list. What even is this movie? Who in the world came up with it? I mean, you can at least call it original, and that's always good, but is there anything else that's actually good? Yeah, I mean, the atmosphere of this film as a whole is pretty unsettling because it feels relatively amateur and unprofessional, as if somebody was making a snuff film and didn't know how to properly make a movie feel cinematic. It has the feel of auto white balance, which is what you would typically get on a phone camera or a point-and-click camera, which is the default setting because non-professionals don't know how to set that up. And I didn't think I'd like that in this movie, but because of how deeply disturbing the film is as a whole, I actually found it slightly more engaging the more amateur it felt, like a B-movie. And that atmosphere set in tone how tense the film eventually becomes, which is up there. One of the craziest things about this movie is that it keeps flip-flopping everything that goes into filmmaking. What do I mean by that? I mean, yeah, the visuals feel amateur because of all that white balance stuff, but at the same time, it actually has some decent practical effects that are made just well enough to believe that these people are actually stitched together. I also mean that the people playing the victims aren't very good actors. They seem to be overacting everything that they do. But then there's a mad scientist. Now, he's just so freaking nuts that I love his performance. Now, he might be overacting his stuff too, but because his character is just so nuts, I kind of find myself at a love-to-hate spot with him. Even the Human Centipede thing itself is something that you both feel like you have to look away from, and stare at the same time, because maybe that's just my morbid curiosity talking. I don't know. I just feel like this film just kind of kept me on a roller coaster of emotions, wanting to know what would happen next. It's the strangest thing. Now, there were some negatives in this film that I wish would have been approached a little bit differently. More than anything in the world, I wanted to know why. Why is this guy doing what he's doing? I feel like there was a reason, but we're just never told. Now, you might just sit there and say, oh, well, that's just because he's nuts. There is no real reason. But I'd actually disagree with you. I think somebody hired him to do it, and they chose him because he's nuts and he wouldn't mind doing it. But as to who hired him in the first place, I don't know. Maybe the sequels will provide more insight to that, but as a standalone movie, it left questions unanswered that bugged me. Not only that, but these people are trapped. They can't do anything, so how are they supposed to be the protagonists? I guess more heads are better than one in doing things, but that's not really the same thing in this movie. From beginning to end, these people have little choice other than to do this mad scientist's bidding, meaning a majority of the plot is basic torture and little else. Still, I rooted for the good guys to win, for the bad guy to lose, all that, so they had to be doing something fairly well at the same time. Let's take a look at my final score for a second. From an unbiased technical vantage point, I think there was a few moments in this movie that stood out as well done, like the practical effects work, the amateur feel, the character of the mad scientist as a whole. I also appreciated how original the movie was, regardless on subject matter. That score is 72%. As for the personal bias score, that's a little bit higher at 78% because in general, it's just interesting enough to feed my curiosity. Putting these scores together, we come to the final rating of 75%, 75 out of 100 possible stars, granting the movie with a letter grade of C. It's fair. I expected it a lot worse, actually, based on everybody else's reactions over it. We'll see if my brain melts more with the sequel soon enough, but let's hear your thoughts on the Human Centipede first sequence in the comments down below. As for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this review, because there's always more like it coming out each and every single day. Hit the subscribe button and bell to be notified when I come out with my review for the Human Centipede 2. And until then, guys, peace out.
Dave examines movies we just watch for fun. Davey is the expert. He is the #1 critic that I go to when I need a movie pick. Thanks for joining up with us.